everyone, and welcome to another episode of Early Bird Anime with Meg and Dan.
I'm Meg.
And I'm Dan. I was very eager to put my Ramblepants on and just as eager to take them off because this week we were watching Zombie Lone. Meg, would you like to tell us a little bit about this show's background?
Sure. So, Zombie Lone was based off of a manga which was done by a female duo known as Peach Pit. And I thought it was interesting that they met back in elementary school and have been best friends since then. And together they authored the award-winning manga Shugo Kyara, which I personally have never read, but I've heard of it. The manga was 13 volumes and it got an anime adaptation in 2007, which had 13 episodes if you count the last two OVAs. It was directed by Nishimori Akira, who did the storyboard for a few Mobile Suit Gundam series as well as Gintama, and it was produced by Studio Xebec M2, which did works like Love Hina and DN Angel. It was licensed in the US by Discotek Media, and it is now streaming on Crunchyroll. It was pretty decently rated. It's got a 6.4 on IMDb and a 7.1 on the website MyAnimeList. So, Daniel, would you like to tell us what all the hubbub is about and give us a quick summary?
I think there was no hubbub, but I will tell a summary. So, this is the story of Kita Michiru, a high schooler who can see black rings around the necks of people who are about to die. During a string of disappearances at her school, a chance encounter with two of her classmates, who were the sole survivors of a terrible undisclosed accident, lead her to discover that the boys are actually zombies who gained literal new leases on life after the accident. Now they have to pay back their massive debt to a zombie loan firm of sorts by hunting down an ever-increasing stream of illegal zombies in their area. Caught up in the action, Michiru nearly dies, and the two boys, who are named Chika and Chito, take on additional debt in order to revive her so that she can use her skills of seeing who can die to aid them in paying off their debts. Meg, what did you think about Zombie Loan?
It was okay. I had watched this a few years back, and it was funny kind of going back and watching it again because I kept thinking that, like, I was like, oh, okay, I remember the ending arc, and then that arc that I thought was the ending happened in, like, episode 4 or 5. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I don't remember what happened after this. And then, as the next arc got going, I was like, okay, I do remember bits of this now. And then the OVA, I didn't remember anything plot relevant at all. So it wasn't terribly memorable, but I do think it had some interesting aspects to it. I really liked their usage of color to emphasize the supernatural. I did like the interpretation of zombies that this series went with, where rather than brain-eating creatures, instead they just kind of lose their inhibitions and become kind of overtaken by their desires. The method of hunting was pretty cool too. So Chika and Shito had to swap their hands because I guess after the accident, their hands had been accidentally switched when they were getting presumably stitched back together. So they have to exchange their hands in order to summon their weapons. Chika has a katana and Shito has a gun. And, the characters were pretty generic, but they did have some interesting moments together. I did enjoy the arcs that kind of went into the backstories a little bit. Shito had a really interesting backstory, I thought. I wouldn't call it a great show, but I didn't hate watching it. Unlike someone I know.
Yes, who could that be? I did not like the show. I'll concede, make some concessions that I did find certain elements to it interesting, like you just said. I wasn't really that big into the colors, but overall I did think certain elements of it were really interesting, like that they worked for a lone shark, and the pairing of the mundane with the supernatural, and things like that. But overall, I just wasn't really impressed with it, and it sort of annoyed me, and was kind of a chore for me to get through. And I'd say the best parallel to my experience of the show was the theme song to the show, because it starts off, it's a pretty grooving, like, rock piece. It's like boop boop bap boop 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 bap bap bam, and it's oh man, this is gonna be cool. And then the singer comes in, and it sounds like he's dying of a hernia, and he just wandered into
Yeah.
the booth, and it's like, oh, Oh no. And that's
Yeah.
sort of what the show is like for me because there were things that really bothered me. For example, there's a couple pretty heavy scenes of casual molestation,
Yeah.
not that great. The writing wasn't that great to me, I think. I wasn't really impressed with the characters all that much. Like, they seemed too flat and stupid. And another thing that kind of bothered me were there were scenes that were they were supposed to be funny, at least I think, because they would be like played up as a comedic scene given the genre, the anime style. But it just wasn't funny. And then there would be times where someone would say something and I would laugh, but no one else was laughing, and I was like, I did I miss something or. Like, it seemed very flip-floppy, and I think for me overall, I think the show's main fault was it was trying to encompass so many different types of things, and it did them all not that great. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I do think that I think that your problem with that is something that because I think there are a lot of anime series that kind of have a blend of genres. Maybe it'll have a serious story, but they'll also have comedic scenes and they'll have little things that, are meant to appeal to different demographics. And I think that wouldn't have bothered you so much if it was a better show.
Yes. Well, like I didn't like there was an episode that I really liked. I think it was episode 6 where they all go camping, and that was actually for the most part a pretty funny episode because it once again takes the supernatural with the mundane. The boss is like, you're overworking these guys, they need a vacation, so they go out and they camp in like an abandoned hot spring, and they're playing ping pong, and like the boss of the zombie loan company is actually like a master at ping pong. Like, that was a really funny
Right.
segment, and it was really interesting and silly to see all these characters who we've seen for several episodes now put in these situations. Like, one guy who works for the police is the driver, and he's sort of like the stubborn dad who just wants everyone to be quiet while he's trying to concentrate on the road. The kids are playing cards in the back and they're all fighting. Like, it was silly. But that was one episode, and things in that episode were also not done very well. Like, they find a werewolf person, and well, he never comes back.
Well, he does in the end of the OVA.
Yeah, in the OVA, but there were a lot of things that didn't really come around. Like, for example, the main character can see black rings around people's necks and go, oh my gosh, that person's gonna die. She later finds that out, like in the middle of episode 1. I was wondering, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if they're gonna explain how she or why she can see these things, and they never do.
But that's one of those things where I think that's a product of the manga adaptation thing, because a lot of times anime that pulls from long-running manga isn't going to adapt. It can't adapt every single arc because if it tried to, it would be terrible. So they have to pick and choose which arcs to do. So it's entirely possible that that was explained in the manga and they just didn't choose that arc in the anime. And personally, I'm okay with that because I don't know, maybe it's just because I watch a lot of anime and I'm used to that kind of storytelling that I don't expect it to. I feel like the little arcs were, I guess, complete enough in and of themselves that it didn't bother me that they didn't address that one thing, which is an important thing. And they did pick arcs that focused more on Chika and Shito rather than Michiru, which is one thing that I did find disappointing. I would have liked to have seen more development from her because in the first episode, she's kind of
She's meek. She's very like a pushover.
she's kind of a doormat. The girls she hangs out with at school always bully her into going and getting their lunches for them because she doesn't know how to say no. And in the first couple of episodes, she kind of learns it's okay for me to say no to things sometimes. And I was like, okay, this is a really interesting start for this character. She's starting to put her foot down a little bit more, but you don't really see that enough. But actually, I do want to kind of go into the, I guess, molestation scenes.
Yes, please do. Because I remember when I was about to get to that episode, you were like,
You're gonna hate this.
you're gonna need a buddy to watch this. You're gonna hate this." And I said, "Oh, it can't be bad." And then there's a scene where it's like Michiru is moved into a like a dorm facility for like zombies who work for the Z-Loan company, I guess you could say, right? And they establish, oh, okay, here's this girl. She also lives here, and she's gonna be like your roommate. Okay, she seems like a fun person. And then in the middle of the night, when they're just talking, the girl like snap changes her personality, which is later revealed that she has split personality disorder, and she just like starts like shoving her fingers down Michiru's pants and was pretty much raping her.
Yeah.
And then the woman who runs it like just knocks out that girl and casually says, "Oh, sorry about that.
She must
This'll
really
only be
like you."
Yeah, this will only be a few minutes. I'll take care of this." And I'm just sitting there like, did I really just see that? Everything that happened, like the way they handled the situation, the way no one seems to mind it that much.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh.
I was not quite as horrified as Daniel is about that scene because I have seen a fair share of anime and I'm used to, I guess, used to the kinds of things that they pull and how, you know, in the anime world, that kind of thing isn't a big deal. It's just done for fan service. That is not to say that my personal stance on it is anything close to that, because it's not, but that is a whole other issue that we don't have the time to address in this episode.
It's just so infuriating to me because it happens like 3 times throughout the series.
It happens a bunch of times. And you know what? I'm okay with some fan service in this case because it went both ways. You know, you had muscly shirtless guys and you had Fujoshi bait. And, you know, so, you know, I'm okay with an episode where, you know, you see some cleavage in the hot springs and stuff like that. Whatever. At least it went both ways. That's my criteria on fan service. But the molestation was way too much. And it kind of tried to push the series into ecchi territory in something that wasn't really ecchi. And I thought it was interesting because the first few episodes where this happened, I was like, this has no point at all other than just to fill up all of these minutes with fan service. And then in one episode, it was in the camping episode actually, Michiru is getting molested in the hot springs again, and she actually finally stands up for herself and pushes the girl away and says, "No, you need to stop that." And she actually gets through to the girl, and I was like, okay, now that's interesting. I still don't necessarily agree with using that as just a casual plot point. However, I think that follows along with kind of the character development that she was hinted at getting in the first couple of episodes. So I think it would have been interesting if they had followed along with that, but nothing ever happened with it. It just kind of got cut short. We don't really see anything else happen with her and that character until the OVAs, when this guy character shows up and Koyomi is kind of blushing over him and Michiru appears to be getting rather jealous.
Koyomi is the girl who's the
split personality girl, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was kind of disappointed because if you were going to put all that time into focusing on this and then have this moment that looks pretty important of Michiru standing up for herself, following along with the don't be a doormat development, that would have been interesting.
It was a shame because that's not the only situation of things that I think could have been developed more or even explored more. Because there's like an episode, like 2 or 3 part maybe arc, where there's a serial killer and they're trying to find him, and it turns out that it was actually Chika's like friend that he knew from school before he was turned into a zombie. And it's revealed at like the end of this episode, and I'm thinking, oh man, that's so intense. He's probably gonna be like the main, or one of the main like antagonists and one of the main struggles for Chika. It's like, do I kill my friend? And then the guy jumps off a building and is like, no, I'm dead now.
Yeah, and then he comes back in like the OVA as some resurrected character or whatever, and I was like, no, you lost your thunder.
It'll do something really interesting, and then it's over before it even started.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
And to me, the only really interesting arc of the series was finding out about Chito, because it seemed to be developed across the series. Because he's a character who's very reserved, quick temperament, but not as much as, and a lot more down than Chika is. And in one episode, Michiru and Chika are talking, and she's asking him about, what happens if you don't pay off your debt in time? And Chika says, oh, well, you can always renew it. And Michiru's like, why don't more people do that? And Chika explains that the more you live after being, like being a zombie and living on starts to chip away at your humanity. Like, you lose your emotions, you sort of become all foggy. He says, like, your heart hardens. And I'm like, oh, that's really
Yeah.
interesting. And that's also an interesting scene because Chica's like, that's what I'm afraid of, like, the most, is like losing that. So it's like, oh, that's interesting. And they talk about that, and then a couple episodes later, it's revealed that Shito is actually born from a woman who was a zombie. So he's actually like zombie born. He didn't die in the accident. Everyone's like, whoa, what? And that explains his whole emotional state, his character, and certain asides that he makes, and why he's not so trusting of humans, even though I think some of those lines come off as really dopey and stupid.
Yeah.
It does explain a lot. Like I think in one episode, in the first episode maybe, and I hated this line too, but Michiru is just like, I don't even feel alive. I think it'd be better if I were dead. And then
Yeah, he just goes
in
off.
a way, I agree with Shito of being like, shut the hell up, like, you're stupid. But he's like, pathetic. You are worthless and stupid, but he was such a jerk.
Yeah.
And there are times where, like, he's angry. He's like, don't follow me or I'll kill you. And that's a scene where I thought it would be funny. But he means it so sincerely, and all the characters are like, whoa, he's serious. And I'm thinking, no, he's not. He's not going to kill you because he needs, like, so it just came off as a really silly, unintentionally silly scene. And also the silliness that he was a hoarder. And that was also never explained. And it's not that needed to be explained. But I would have loved to find out why he felt like hoarding a giant Colonel Sanders, like, figure, life size, and he's got it in his room just hanging out. It was an interesting show. Like, I was thinking, because when I was first starting to watch anime, one of the first shows I ever watched was Yu Yu Hakusho, if anyone knows that. And I was comparing that show a lot to this one because of the very similar premises. Like, Yu Yu Hakusho, a guy dies and he's resurrected, and in exchange for that, he has to work capturing, killing, bringing to justice these demons who either escape the spirit world or whatever, and that way he can repay the powers that be that brought him back to life. In this show, people die, and in exchange for being brought back to life, they have to work off their debt. I'm like, okay, that's really interesting. But the shows go about those sorts of things that they do differently. And I think the main difference is that Yu Yu Hakusho had more time to develop everything. And this show had 10 episodes. And this is, I'd say, one of the rare cases where I wanted it to be longer, because I would have liked to see characters be developed more. I wanted to find out the intricacies of Michiru's, like, neck thing. I wanted to find out why Shito had a gun and Chika had a sword. Like, and those are like minor things, but I think they would have been really interesting if they were delved into. And your response was, well, they probably do that in the manga.
To an extent.
Yeah, to an extent. We've never read the manga, and I'm sure it is, but it's a shame that it wasn't in the show. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. I think my favorite part about the series was when it had, like, those little moments of humanity. So, like, when Chika was really depressed over his childhood friend turning out to be, like, a serial killer and dying, he kind of, imposes on Shito and is like, oh, can I sleep in your room tonight? And Shito's like, no, go away. And then, he comes back from his bath and Chika's there anyway. And instead of kicking him out, he sits and talks to him for a little bit. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. And, I'm a sucker for those kinds of scenes anyway. But so maybe I'm a little biased there. There was one scene that I thought was hilarious, though. It was another really nice thing where they went to a funeral home to kind of give donations to the families of the zombies that they had killed, because they were mindless zombies when they killed them, but they were once human, and they had people who loved them and cared for them. And I was like, oh, that's beautiful. I really like that they're acknowledging the effects of their actions outside of their main character sphere. And then Shito had to go and ruin everything by saying flat out, if this were an anime or manga, no one would care about these, because no one would care about this, because they were just side characters and no one would be grieving for them. And I was just like, you took a perfectly good moment and you ground it into the dirt with your heel and jumped around and saying, look at me, we're doing a good thing. We're not like other anime and manga.
This,
and I was
this
just like,
holier
oh my
than
God.
thou attitude that comes from a character who's kind of just a stuck up, like, really, come down from your soapbox, man. Like, seriously. That's gonna wrap it up for this week's episode. We'd appreciate all the support you could give us, because, support's always nice. Leave a comment if you think I was too hard on this show, which maybe I was.
A lot of people
Uh,
seem to like it.
Like it if you like my comments. And subscribe, because that would help us out too.
Yes, it
We
would.
are the discount Ramblepants.
And remember, humans are immature and stupid, but they have a lot of energy because they're alive.
Genius.
So profound.
Adios.
All right, see you next time.